They recorded it in the Galactic archives like it was a myth, a whisper too brutal to be true. A human general, born in fire and raised by the ruthless Baba Yaga, whose very name made imperial officers shudder in disbelief. They called him a legend, a feral ghost. But the truth was far more terrifying. This was a man shaped by a merciless nightmare, forged in the crucible of an Earth long forgotten by the stars. And when he emerged, the Galactic Empire that thought it was invincible was about to learn it had never stood a chance. The archives opened with a cold voice, sterile and detached, recounting the beginning. A small boy abandoned in the dead of a war-ravaged Earth, left to the mercy of a wilderness that no empire could conquer. The forests that stretched across that planet were ancient, cruel, and whispered of forgotten powers. Baba Yaga was not just a name, she was a force. A living nightmare dressed in bone and shadow. To the Galactic Empire, she was a myth, a primitive superstition among Earth's last survivors. To the boy, she was everything. He was brought to her by unknown hands, a war orphan lost to the ashes of a burning city. The moment he stepped into the iron forest, the world shifted beneath his feet. Baba Yaga's eyes, cold as the void between stars, appraised him. She spoke once, the words harsh and unyielding. You will learn what it means to suffer, to survive, and to be merciless. Mercy is a lullaby sung by your enemies. Forget it. From that day, the boy's world was stripped to its rawest edges. The training was brutal beyond imagining. Days without food or water, nights spent walking the line between pain and madness. The forest was alive, twisted trees that whispered secrets in languages older than the Empire, beasts with eyes like dying stars, and traps that tore flesh and spirit alike. Baba Yaga taught the boy to hunt not just animals but his own fears. To kill silently with bare hands, to vanish like smoke when the hunter became the hunted. His lessons were a dance with death itself. Every scar he carried was a story of survival. Every wound a lesson etched into muscle and bone. Baba Yaga showed him how to turn suffering into strength, and how to listen to the forest when it spoke of betrayal and death. Trust no one, she said. Not even yourself. While the boy endured the relentless forge of his training, the Galactic Empire began its grand invasion of Earth. They arrived with arrogance, fleets that darkened the skies, weapons that tore continents asunder. Earth was a backwater, a planet to be subdued and exploited. The High Command declared victory certain before the first shots were fired. Bombardments rained down, cities crumbled. The Empire's war machines crushed organized resistance quickly, obliterating human command centers and military installations. The Empire celebrated the easy conquest. But the real human general was nowhere near these battles. He was still in the forest, shaped by pain and shadow, waiting. Then came the first whispers of something different. A scouting party sent to secure a strategic region never returned. Communications went silent. Another patrol vanished without a trace. The Empire dismissed these losses as inevitable casualties of guerrilla resistance. They called them feral human outlaws, brutal but insignificant. The general emerged from the forest like a ghost. No herald, no announcement. Just a cold presence that moved like death itself. His first strike was surgical. A lone scout unit wiped out in a way that left no survivors, no bodies. The one they spared was left with a message carved into his flesh. The forest remembers. Galactic intelligence scrambled to identify this new threat. Their data showed no official military training, no record of rank or affiliation. Just a single human, labeled as a failed experiment, abandoned by Earth's military decades ago. The officers laughed. How could one savage man threaten the might of a star empire? Admiral Vorex, confident and cruel, scoffed at the reports. One savage won't stop us. Let them howl in their forests while we conquer the stars. But the boy, now a man, knew better. His upbringing had taught him patience. He waited, watched, and prepared. He set traps inspired by the oldest Earth legends, tales of haunted houses and spirits that devoured the foolish. Soldiers sent to capture him found themselves ensnared in ruins where the laws of reality twisted. Houses with chicken legs that moved through shadows, walls that whispered curses and drove men mad. Each trap was a lesson in fear and death. The Empire's soldiers screamed of witches and monsters, but it was no sorcery, just the cruel artistry of a mind trained by Baba Yaga's darkest teachings. From a distance, the general observed the chaos. The Empire's might faltered against ancient horrors reborn through his will. "You've made a mistake," he murmured, voice cold as the void. "She didn't raise a human. She raised a monster." The Empire's reaction was slow, dismissive at first. They believed this was an anomaly, a wild aberration born of a dying world. Their fleets pressed forward, confident. But with every failed assault, their arrogance chipped away. Rumors spread among their ranks, whispers of a shadow that stalked them, impossible to kill, a ghost with the heart of a predator. The boys' campaign of terror was not born from hatred, but necessity. Earth was a graveyard of forgotten dreams, a world abandoned by the galaxy. The Empire sought to bury it deeper, but they had not accounted for the resilience born in its darkest corners. Baba Yaga's lessons echoed through every strike. Cruelty met with cruelty, cunning with cunning, pain with pain. The general taught the forest to fight, and it answered. The Empire's soldiers faced horrors beyond their training, illusions born of Earth's savage soul. They fought shadows and died to legends. Admiral Vorex's orders grew desperate. He commanded scorched earth tactics, annihilating entire sectors to root out the ghost. But the more they burned, the more the forest seemed to spread. Survivors spoke of a figure moving through the smoke, laughing in the face of death, a man who wielded fear as a weapon sharper than any blade. The Empire's confidence crumbled. Their fleets staggered under invisible blows. Intelligence reports began to leak tales of madness, units turning on each other, commanders broken by nightmares they could not explain. The general's campaign was not merely military. It was psychological warfare forged in the crucible of Baba Yaga's training. The Galactic Senate began to murmur doubts. Was Earth truly just a primitive backwater? Or had they awakened a force that no empire could control? The general did not lead armies. He led myth, shadows that whispered of ancient revenge. A reckoning born from pain and silence. The forest waited. The boy who became the general stood ready. And the Galactic Empire, drunk on its own hubris, was blind to the storm gathering at its doorstep. When the first full battalion marched into the ruined city, they found more than death. They found the embodiment of their fears given flesh and bone. The city itself seemed alive, twisted by the general's will into a trap of nightmares. Walls bled shadows, streets hummed with unseen dangers, and from the darkness came voices speaking in tongues older than the stars. The soldiers screamed. They begged for mercy they would never receive. The general watched silently from the shadows, his eyes cold and unyielding. "You sought to conquer Earth," he whispered. "Now you will learn its price." The Galactic Empire's failure on Earth shattered their illusion of control. The boy raised by Baba Yaga was no longer a ghost in the wilderness. He was a force rewriting the rules of war itself. Reports from the front lines described entire divisions disappearing, their communications reduced to garbled static or chilling last transmissions that spoke of ancient curses and unseen killers. The Empire's high command scrambled to adapt, but every strategy they deployed crumbled under the general's merciless assault. He operated not like a conventional commander but as a predator entwined with the planet's primal fury. His tactics defied military doctrine. No formation was safe, no supply line secure. Where the Empire saw territory to conquer, he saw traps to lay and shadows to wield. The forest whispered his commands, trees bending to conceal his movements and roots twisting to ensnare the unwary. The general was not just leading an army. He was orchestrating the planet itself as a weapon. Earth's history was a weapon in his hands. The Empire had dismissed the old stories of Baba Yaga as superstition, but they were real and deadly. His training in those ancient, brutal ways gave him an edge no technological superiority could overcome. He could read the land like a book, predict enemy movements, and vanish before they could strike. His enemies were hunted, but not always physically. Many fell first to despair, broken by fear more than force. The Galactic Empire unleashed their elite task forces, units equipped with the latest combat tech and weapons of mass destruction. They were supposed to crush any resistance swiftly. Instead, they became victims of relentless guerrilla warfare sharpened to surgical precision. Their sophisticated machinery was turned against them as the general exploited every weakness. Psychological warfare was his greatest weapon. Imperial soldiers found themselves trapped in nightmares made real, holographic illusions triggered by devices hidden deep in the forest, designed to mimic the terrifying legends told around Earth's dying campfires. Men who had faced cosmic horrors broke down sobbing, hearing voices that promised death or betrayal from within their ranks. Paranoia spread like wildfire. The Empire's commanders tried to counterattack with brutal reprisals, scorched earth tactics that devastated the land but only fueled the generals' resolve. Each destroyed village became a monument to resistance, each dead soldier a whispered warning in the growing legend of the boy who survived Baba Yaga's wrath. Behind the lines, the general's influence grew among Earth's scattered survivors. Tribes once isolated and fractured began to unite under his banner, not as armies, but as a living resistance. They learned from his example how to use the land, how to disappear into the shadows, how to fight without mercy or hesitation. The forests no longer just hid him, they sheltered a rising force ready to reclaim their world. The Galactic Senate convened emergency sessions, their voices tense with disbelief. Many had underestimated Earth's inhabitants as primitive, easy prey. Now, questions filled the chambers. How could one man wreak such devastation? Was this human simply lucky, or was there something more? Something the Empire had failed to understand? Admiral Vorex's confidence shattered. His strategies failed time and again, his fleet's losses mounting. His own officers whispered about a curse, an enemy who defied logic and science. He doubled down, ordering relentless bombardments and deploying experimental weapons designed to purge the forests and force the general out into open battle. Yet the general never took the bait. Instead, he struck where they were weakest: communications hubs, supply convoys, and command outposts. Each strike was swift and brutal, leaving behind only wreckage and the chilling signature of his presence. A single black feather left at every scene, a symbol that quickly spread terror through Imperial ranks. The Empire's technology was formidable, but it was human cunning and ruthless survival instinct that shattered their superiority. The general's upbringing had not just taught him to fight, it had forged him into a master of adaptation. He twisted every tool the Empire wielded against them, turning drones into decoys, hacking surveillance to feed false information, and using the landscape to mask his movements. As losses mounted, morale plummeted. Soldiers who survived encounters with the general returned broken, silent, haunted by the things they'd seen. Rumors spread of a man who could vanish in a blink, whose eyes burned with the cold fury of a dying world. The Empire's soldiers began calling him the Forest Shadow, a ghost no technology could track. The human general's legend grew beyond the battlefield. His name became a rallying cry among Earth's survivors and a whispered nightmare among Imperial forces. Rebel factions in other occupied systems began to rise, inspired by tales of his ferocity and cunning. The Empire's grip weakened, not only on Earth but across multiple fronts. Desperate, the Empire deployed specialists, psychologists, hunters, and engineers, tasked with capturing or killing the general. They studied his tactics, analyzing every encounter for patterns. Yet he was always one step ahead. His moves were unpredictable, a chaotic blend of savage instinct and cold calculation. He was a ghost born of a ruthless childhood, a product of the darkest lessons Baba Yaga had taught. In one brutal encounter, an elite Imperial strike team cornered the general in a ruined cityscape. They believed their overwhelming firepower and numbers would secure victory. But the general had turned the city itself into a trap, rigging ruins with explosives and automated defenses. As the team advanced, they were torn apart by blasts and ambushes. Only one survived, scarred and broken, left to tell a tale of a man who moved like a demon, whose laughter echoed in the smoke. The general's tactics went beyond simple warfare. He understood that the Empire's greatest weakness was not its technology but its arrogance. They saw Earth as a conquered world, a place of no consequence. He exploited that complacency with every move, turning it into their undoing. Meanwhile, the Empire's propaganda tried to suppress news of the general's success. Official reports framed the defeats as minor setbacks, blaming rogue units or logistical failures. But soldiers knew the truth. Whispers of the forest's shadow spread through ranks like wildfire, infecting morale with fear and uncertainty. As the conflict escalated, Earth itself seemed to respond to the general's will. Strange phenomena appeared: power surges in the forest, inexplicable malfunctions in Imperial equipment, and sightings of strange creatures lurking just beyond sensor range. Some officers believed the planet itself was alive, fighting back through its last human defender. The general never sought glory or recognition. His mission was simple: survival and revenge for a world abandoned. Baba Yaga's harsh lessons had hardened him against hope or mercy. Every victory was a step toward reclaiming Earth's dignity from the ashes of Imperial conquest. His growing network of allies included former soldiers, scavengers, and indigenous tribes. They shared knowledge, resources, and information. Together, they formed a shadow army that no Empire force could easily detect or defeat. The general was their leader, not by rank but by will. The Galactic Empire's grip tightened with desperation as the human general's legend transcended Earth, echoing through star systems. They no longer saw him as a mere rebel but a symbol of an insurrection that threatened to unravel their dominion. The Senate sanctioned extreme measures, deploying the full might of their war machine: star fleets, bioengineered soldiers, and reality-warping weapons designed to annihilate everything in their path. Yet, for every assault, the general's forces adapted, countered, and survived, proving that raw strength was no match for the fusion of primal cunning and unyielding will. The general had evolved beyond a mere tactician. He was a living myth shaped by ruthless training and the harsh lessons of Baba Yaga. His presence was a rallying cry to oppressed peoples across the galaxy, a beacon that ignited dormant fires of rebellion. His command transcended spoken orders. He led by instinct, fearlessness, and an intimate bond with Earth's wild soul. His troops fought not out of blind loyalty, but conviction born of shared hardship and respect for a leader who never asked for sacrifice without bearing it himself. Imperial command attempted infiltration and sabotage, sending agents disguised as refugees and traitors to fracture the resistance from within. The general anticipated these moves with uncanny precision. His network, woven from countless allies, intercepted plots and dismantled conspiracies before they could blossom. Betrayal bred swift and severe retribution. His ruthlessness, honed by Baba Yaga's merciless tutelage, left no room for weakness, ensuring that loyalty among his ranks was absolute. The Empire unleashed the Void Storm, a devastating weapon that warped space-time, obliterating entire battle groups. It was the apex of their technological hubris, a weapon to crush not only bodies but the very fabric of resistance. Yet, even this failed to break the general's will. He exploited the chaos wrought by the Void Storm to strike where the Empire least expected, decimating supply lines and commandeering their advanced technology for his own use. His forces became shadows within shadows, impervious to the Empire's might. Amid the chaos, the general forged uneasy alliances with alien factions long subjugated by the Empire. These alliances were pragmatic and fragile, yet united by a shared hatred for tyranny. Each faction contributed unique skills and knowledge: psionic warriors, bioengineered assassins, and technomystics, creating a coalition that was as unpredictable as it was deadly. Together, they orchestrated a multi-front assault, stretching Imperial forces thin across the galaxy. The general's strategic genius shone brightest in these coordinated strikes. His forces simultaneously sabotaged supply depots, intercepted communications, and executed precision raids on key installations. These actions fractured the Empire's control, causing supply shortages, communication breakdowns, and widespread panic. Imperial commanders found themselves isolated, their troops demoralized and vulnerable. The Galactic Senate's patience evaporated. Desperate to turn the tide, they sanctioned a covert operation to capture the general alive. This mission was led by Commander Kales, a ruthless and cunning officer with a reputation for eliminating insurgents. Kales's approach was cold, calculating, and relentless, designed to outmatch the general's guerrilla tactics with equal cunning. Kales's forces penetrated deep into Earth's reclaimed wilderness, employing advanced surveillance and drone swarms. Despite technological superiority, they found themselves ensnared in the general's traps and countermeasures. Every move was anticipated and countered, every advantage nullified. The forest itself seemed to betray the invaders, guiding the general's forces to strike with devastating effect. In a decisive confrontation, the general and Kales clashed in brutal combat. The encounter was more than a battle, it was a clash of ideologies. Human resilience forged in the crucible of survival against imperial tyranny bolstered by cold ambition. The general's ferocity and mastery of unconventional warfare overwhelmed Kales, shattering his forces and leaving the commander defeated and broken. The victory was a turning point. News of Kales's defeat spread like wildfire, shattering the illusion of imperial invincibility. It galvanized resistance movements across occupied worlds, sparking widespread uprisings. The general's name became synonymous with hope and defiance, inspiring countless to take up arms against oppression. The Empire, battered and humiliated, faced an insurmountable challenge. Their once unquestioned dominion was fracturing, their fleets scattered and their soldiers demoralized. The general's campaign exposed not only their military vulnerabilities but the moral bankruptcy of their rule. The galaxy's oppressed peoples saw a future beyond subjugation, a future carved by the relentless will of one man and the fierce spirit of humanity. In the aftermath, the general turned his focus to rebuilding. The shattered worlds, scarred by war, looked to him for guidance. He fostered alliances, promoted unity, and instilled discipline among the disparate factions. His leadership was not of tyranny but of shared purpose, a vision of freedom forged in fire and blood. The Galactic Empire's fall was not swift but inevitable. Their arrogance had blinded them to the strength of a people united by survival and guided by a general who embodied their indomitable spirit. Earth was no longer a conquered world but the heart of a new era, an era defined by the refusal to bow, to break, or to forget. As the galaxy watched, the human general, raised by the ruthless Baba Yaga, stood as a testament to the power of relentless will. His story was not just one of war but of transformation, of a planet reclaimed, a people awakened, and an empire toppled. The legend of the forest's shadow would endure, a warning and an inspiration to all who dared to challenge the might of humanity.